This section is exciting. We take a look at some special workflows. First I want to show you MCP servers. So you will briefly learn what MCP servers are, how they work and why you should care. And then we will immediately create a MCP server and a client inside of n8n. On this MCP server you can connect a lot of different tools. And then you can connect this server to different clients. You can trigger the server either from n8n directly, you can trigger it from LM Studio, you can trigger it even from Cloud Desktop and a lot more. And later also from Flowise. As soon as the server is done, I will show you how you can connect it with LM Studio. And here we also do some really cool stuff, because you can work with LM Studio just like you know. And then you can trigger databases, email automations and a lot more from this nice interface. So you have a front end for your n8n applications. Next I want to show you how you can automate ConfUI. You can integrate ConfUI workflows directly into n8n. And you can trigger them like every hour if you want with some time triggers, you can trigger them by chat, you can create pictures, videos and a lot more. Next we will take a closer look at sub workflows, because this is actually needed if we want to connect our ConfUI workflow to our MCP server. As soon as these things are connected, we can even trigger ConfUI from LM Studio. This is also really exciting. So you have the possibility to create pictures with LM Studio. As soon as this is done, I want to show you OpenWebUI. OpenWebUI is a front end that looks nearly exactly the same as ChatGPT. You can dictate your prompts. OpenWebUI can talk back, you have the internet access included, you have rack included and a lot more. And then we can also use OpenWebUI as a front end for n8n. Some people like OpenWebUI a tiny bit more, and that's why I want to show you how you can use this. But here you also have some downfalls. If we connect it to LM Studio, you can do this really nicely with the Model Context Protocol. And you can actually work normally in LM Studio and trigger your MCP server just as a tool. If you do this in OpenWebUI, we will do it with a webhook. And here you have the downfall that you have to trigger your n8n workflow, and it's not really optional. But nonetheless it's cool. Next I will also show you how you can make HTTP requests to different APIs. We will import a curl so that you can create pictures with an API. Maybe your PC is too weak to run LLMs and diffusion at the same time. That's why I also want to include at least some API calls in this section. I do think that this makes the course complete, because if we talk about AI, we should also talk about API calls. And lastly, I want to talk once again briefly about OCR. So optical character recognition. You already know that you can extract text out from pictures, and I will show you some automations that you can also create inside of n8n. And with that said, I'll see you of course in the next video. In this video I want to show you the basics of the Model Context Protocol. We will do this as easy as possible and we will only use function calling. After this video you will have a MCP server directly in n8n and you can trigger the server from anywhere that you want. In the next video we will connect it to LM Studio. But first let's just take a look what the Model Context Protocol actually is. MCP is an open source standard for connecting AI applications to external systems. You can think of it like the USB-C port for AI applications. Just like a USB-C provides a standardized way to connect electronic devices, MCP provides a standardized way to connect AI applications to external systems. Here they also have a graph. This basically means that you develop this MCP server. On the server can be a lot of tools. For example, databases like SQL, Postgres, G-Drive and so on, or development tools, or productivity tools like Google Maps, Slack, Gmail and so on. And as soon as one server is developed, you can connect the server to different IDs. You can use chat interfaces like Cloud Desktop, Library Chat and so on. Code IDs like Cloud Code, Goose, Cursor and so on. Or you can use other AI applications. We will use of course LM Studio because also here MCP is included, and we will use n8n. Because we want to run everything locally. You don't want to use Cloud Desktop because obviously then you will send your data into the web. Here they have a whole documentation, they explain you exactly how everything is working, so you can see really a lot of things. The whole architecture, if you want to do a deep dive. Basically I also have an entire course on the Model Context Protocol, but we want to make this as easy as possible. What we are doing is we can always develop a server, and this server can connect to different clients. Here are some clients that we can use with this Model Context Protocol. You see there is an endless amount, but most of these tools are closed source. But LM Studio of course not. This is completely open source. And you see also this right here. You can include resources, prompts, tools, discovery, sampling, routes, and elucidation. The things that we will focus on are tools. This is the most practical thing. And to be honest, the other things, yeah, they are sometimes a little bit messy and they don't work in every single ID. By the way, MCP was developed by Anthropic on November 25th, 2024. This was also a great blog post. You can give this a read if you want to. If we put this in simple words, you already know that a LLM is not always that smart. If you ask it to query a database or to send a mail, the LLM cannot do it. In order to do this, the LLM will do function calling. And most of the time it does function calling to an API. You already understand this. This is the so-called function calling or tool use. I have already explained you this. Now these function calls, they work most of the time with a HTTP request. You can have get, post, put, delete and so on. If you want to get data from a database, you will use a HTTP GET request. And here comes now the downfall. Every single time, as soon as you build a new application, you have to set these requests up completely from scratch. That's the downfall of function calling. But what you can do instead is, you simply develop a MCP server. We'll call this S for server. And then as soon as you use, for example, new AI agents, new applications, you can call the server. The server will do basically a translation, and then the server will do the HTTP request for you. But here you can obviously put more than just one tool. You can make one server with a database, with Gmail, with the calendar, with everything that you can think of. And as soon as the server is built out, you can connect it to every single ID that you want. So let's just go straight into NLN and we build our first server, and we will do this as easy as possible. We are right here in NLN and I want to show you something. If we come to the SQL mail agent, you already know that we can use, for example, this SQL database. And to save some time, I will simply copy these 3 nodes. I come back on personal, I press on create new, then we press plus, and what we are using right now is a MCP server trigger. As soon as the server trigger is included, we can insert our tools and connect these tools to our MCP server. Boom. Now something cool. You can trigger this MCP server from every single ID. You can trigger this from different NLN workflows. You can trigger this from LM Studio. You can trigger this from wherever you want. And I want to show you how easy all of this is. Basically, our tools are already set up. You already understand this. So we are connected to this database here. Obviously, you can also use your vector database. If you want to connect to your database from NLN, for example, you can press plus. And here we use, for example, an AI agent. And by the way, you don't have to do this on this canvas. You can also go into new canvas. And on new canvas, you can put simply the MCP trigger as a tool. But for illustration purposes, I do think that this is fine here. Now the next thing is, let's just say we want to trigger this by chat. So chat trigger. We connect this chat with this AI agent, then we use a model, and obviously we want to work locally, so we use this model right here with a Qwen 38B model. Boom. And what we need right now is tools. If we press on tools, right now we need a MCP client tool. We always have a client-server relationship. So what we want to do is that our client is triggering our server. And as you see right here, these clients can be a lot of different things. And one of these things is also, of course, NLN. And if you want to connect this client with the server, everything that you have to do is to come on your MCP server. And here you find either the test URL or the production URL. I would recommend you to use the production URL. Then you can use, for example, an authentication. If you press right here, you can use bearer auth or header auth. We don't use any authentication yet. I just want to use none. This is just for testing purposes. And obviously, because this works locally, you have no security risk. And then you have also a path. This path is not really that important. Sometimes they also ask you if you want to use streamable HTTP or the server send event. The server send event is depreciating. I would recommend you to use streamable HTTP. If you come here on settings, you have also some settings that you don't need right now. So simply come on parameters, use this production URL, copy the production URL. Then you need to make this active, so this only works if you throw this at active. If it doesn't work, it's because we have nothing included here. So we come on this MCP client, and here we use this endpoint. we simply insert this endpoint, and here you see once again the server transport. The server transport is here HTTP streamable. Also the server send event still works, but it's depreciating. And I do think they do some routing in the background and they use streamable HTTP, so we simply use this right here. And the authentication is obviously none, and we want to have every single tool included. If you press right here, you can also select different tools if you want. So if you press here, you can then basically select different tools. Right now it's not working and I will show you in a minute why. So we simply come back on all. As soon as all of this is connected, we can press save and then we make this active. And as soon as this is active, boom, I can come back on the MCP client once again. And right now I can press select. And here I can use, for example, get many rows, delete a row, or create a row. These are basically the tools that we have in Supabase. But like I told you, we simply want to use all. And what we are doing right now is, we will use this AI agent. This AI agent will trigger the MCP client. The client will communicate with the MCP server, and the server will translate automatically without a system prompt if we want to create rows, if we want to delete rows, or if we want to get rows. I will show you how all of this is working. So we press save, we press open chat, list all my contacts. I send this out. The MCP client gets triggered. This client will now go on to trigger the MCP server. The server will translate my HTTP request and I will get my contacts back. And here are my contacts. And you can basically see that I got everything. I got all the IDs, then also the timestamps, the names, the email and the phone. These are obviously exactly the things that I have in my database. And of course I can do it vice versa. I can add contacts and a lot more. I hope this should be clear for you. What I want to show you basically is what happened here. First we triggered of course OLAMA. And in OLAMA it's simply the prompt to list all my contacts. Then OLAMA with this AI agent goes on and it triggers the MCP client. Then here you see that everything gets translated automatically. So query tool name, this is the name of the tool. Then once again obviously OLAMA, once again back to this MCP tool. And here we get basically all the data back. You can see it down here. And then OLAMA puts it all together into a nice little sheet. So everything worked perfect. And now I want to show you the coolest part. So let's just save this. We assume that we come back on personal. And we come, for example, on this Supabase rec. What we can do right here is we can press plus and we can eventually use a MCP client tool here. And with this client tool, I want to show you, boom, we simply put it down here. And on this MCP client tool, I can give once again the same endpoint. And then we are able to reach our other MCP server also from this tool. This is completely awesome. So as soon as something is set up, you can connect it with every single agent that you will build ever. So you can connect to your databases with one simple node. You add one node, you connect to your database and it works. The same thing is obviously also true for this vector database. If you create an MCP server, you can connect this vector database to every single AI agent that you have. You can write stuff into this vector database, you can read stuff from this vector database, you can do the same thing with these contacts and from every single AI agent that you will ever build. As soon as one MCP server is set up, for example this right here, or maybe you also want to add the vector database. As soon as this is set up, you can connect it to every agent that you ever built. And I hope you get it. You can also connect it to every single other client, for example, Agentic Flow, ChatGPT, Claude Code, Claude Desktop, Cursor, Fast Agent, the Gemini CLI. Every single client that supports the Model Context Protocol will work. Obviously we want to work locally, and that's why I want to show you in the next video how we can connect this to LM Studio. But the thing that I show you in the next video will basically work for most of these clients. So you could even connect to ChatGPT. If you come down on your name, come on Settings, Apps and Connectors, here you see that you can connect to your NAN via the Model Context Protocol. I already did this a few times. This course is not really like for MCP with ChatGPT because we want to work locally. And that's what I want to show you in the next video. We have built our MCP server and in the next video we will connect it with LM Studio. And then you have a really nice front end, and from this front end you can trigger whatever automation you want to. So we will do exciting stuff over the next video. You can trigger Conf UI, you can trigger other APIs, you can trigger Gmail, you can trigger databases and a lot more. The only limitation is your imagination. So in this video you have learned basically a lot of things. You have learned what the Model Context Protocol is. The Model Context Protocol is an open source standard. It gives a standardized way how LLMs can communicate with tools, prompts and resources. These are the three big buckets. We use of course the tools because this is the most important thing. The MCP server will simply translate your API call. Most of the time it's a HTTP request. It can be get, put, post, delete and so on. Everything works out of the box. You don't have to worry about it, and as soon as one server is created, you can connect it to every single client that you want. And I'll see you in the next one. In this video we will go on. We will use basically this MCP server and we will connect it to a nice front end. Because sometimes it's not like optimal to always hang out in N8N. Most likely you don't want to play like all day long in this interface. Obviously you can also use this hosted chat, but what I like to do is, I like to use LM Studio as a front end. And you already understand the software LM Studio. LM Studio has the downfall that it cannot really do function calling. And obviously you cannot include a lot of different tools. But of course, you can use the Model Context Protocol and connect to your MCP server. In order to do that, you need to come here once again to N8N. Then you come on this MCP server trigger. Remember to leave this at active and you simply copy this URL. And you use obviously the production URL. And you see this runs here on localhost 5678. That's basically exactly this localhost from me. And we use this MCP server right here. So we copy these. Then we go into LM Studio. And the LM Studio software, you can use them as you already understand. We are here in a new chat. I simply used this small Qwen 3 model with 4 billion parameters. That's a thinking model. Really small, but I do think this will do the job. This is only 2.33 gigabyte. Remember, that's a tiny model. Obviously, I could use GPT OSS, but I just want to try if this small model can also handle this. The next thing that you can eventually do is to set a system prompt. You can tell, for example, in the system prompt you're a helpful assistant for XYZ. Every time as I ask you like to save contacts or get contacts, use the N8N MCP tool. But I do think we should start without a system prompt. I always think that the best system prompt is no system prompt because this leaves the token really small. And if you use less tokens, your application will be faster. In order that you can connect to your MCP server, you have to do something. The first thing is that you come on the right side, you come on the settings right here, as you already see. Then you come on program. And here on program you see that I have already a N8N MCP included. And I can call conf.ui and so on. We will talk about this obviously over the next videos. But of course I need to show you how you can build this from scratch. The first thing that you need to do, if this is not included or even if you don't find MCP down here, is that you come here on install. And here on install you will find MCP. And on MCP you will find edit mcp.json and you press on these. Then you are basically in this JSON file and you can edit this JSON file. Don't worry, I will give you my code. And here you already see it. Be mindful, MCPs are useful, but they can be dangerous. Caution, MCP servers can run arbitrary code on your computer. You should never add MCP servers from untrusted sources. Only use MCP servers from developers you trust. And you press got it, because we will develop the server ourselves. Basically, we have already developed the server. Now, why does LM Studio tell you this? Because you will find right now at this minute nearly 70,000 MCP servers. And there's also a lot of messy stuff included. Obviously, you find also really great MCP servers. You can search like every single thing that you want. Puppeteer is, for example, something that can automate web scraping. This thing can click on your browser. That's a so-called computer use agent. You can use AWS, you can use GitLab, you can use a lot of trusted servers, but obviously you will also find stuff that is like not that nice. That's why I would recommend you to stick here with this N8N MCP servers that you develop yourself. Because you have always the possibility that you get, for example, a tool poisoning attack or a MCP rug pull. We will talk about the security risks at the end of this course, because for now you simply do the stuff that I show you and then you do not have any risk. So we have developed this ourselves. Like I told you, we copy this production URL and then you come back once again into LM Studio and you come on this mcp.json. Here is most likely nothing included and I will give you my code. I will show you immediately what this code is doing. We start to opening up a curly bracket and down here you see that we close it. If you see here these brackets, we open up always these brackets and close them down here. So you see 1, 2, 3 curly brackets are open and we close 1, 2, 3 curly brackets. We have also one eckige Klammer. Yes, that's German, and we close it down here. So first we open this curly bracket, we use MCP servers, we open the second one, we use NAN, we open the third one, then this is the command is npx. npx runs over Node.js. Obviously you have already installed Node.js. Then we use the arguments. And in these arguments we open up this bracket right here. This here is -y. This stands for yes. This means that we want to allow like every single action that occurs. Then we use the super gateway and we also use --SSE. This stands for the server send event. Obviously you already understand that the server send event is depreciating over time. They will use streamable HTTP sooner or later, but for now these config files work if we use SSE. So we should simply leave this. And then down here there's a URL included. And here you need to type in your URL. So I will give you this file exactly in this way. You simply copy these, you delete everything that you find in this mcp.json. Most likely you only find an empty bracket. So you delete everything. Then you include my code. You copy the code from NAN. You delete this thing down here and you include your new URL. So this is right now my new URL that is included, and then you press Ctrl S for save, and then this thing is safe, and you see also on the right side that we got an update. Right now I have included get many rows in Supabase, delete a row in Supabase, and create a row in Supabase. If we come here on a new chat, we can simply come down here and we press right now on this mcp/NAN. This is a tool that we use, and obviously you need to use an LLM that can use tool calling. And right now we can call this MCP server as a tool. And we can trigger it. This means that I can delete rows, I can insert rows, and I can get rows. But obviously you can press plus and you can include Gmail, or you can include HTTP requests to different web pages and so on. I will show you in a minute what happens if we include something. But first we should test this. So this thing is included. You see in the right side that I have activated anything. And if I tell this thing, for example, something like this, save this in Supabase, for example, it's john@john.com, and then some random numbers. If I send this out, I do think that our LLM should basically be smart enough. So the assistant is right now thinking. And you see that we are triggering right now the NAN MCP. By the way, as soon as you do this the first time, LM Studio will ask you if it's okay to trigger this tool. I have obviously already allowed this, and that's why I will get this thing back. We can see it is thoughts, so basically it thinks a tiny bit about this stuff. Then we use our NAN MCP tool, and then this thing tells me the record has been successfully saved to Supabase with the following details. Name John, email this right here, and the phone is this right here. The row was created with ID 9 at this timestamp. If I come into NAN right now, I can come on executions. In executions you see that we have triggered this MCP server, and the server was smart enough to decide that we need to use create a row in Supabase. And if I press on these, you can see that we have indeed the ID 9 created at this timestamp. The name is John, the mail is this, the phone is that. And if we come into our Supabase, boom, there you see it. Everything is included just like you would expect it. And I can also do something vice versa. List all my contacts from Supabase. If I send this out, this thing will of course think for a tiny bit. I do think this is also like somehow fast. Yeah, I get a good amount of tokens even while I'm recording here. So first we used get many rows in Supabase, obviously. Then this model thinks once again, and then it will give me hopefully all my contacts. I do see that this seems to work. Okay, and right now this thing stopped, and I will tell you why this stopped. It's most likely because of the context length. My model has a limit response length of like roughly 1000 tokens. That's why I only get basically my output until here, because I used a lot of different thinking tokens. But inside these thinking tokens you obviously see that we use Peter, we use Arnold, and so on. So what we can do is, of course, we can increase, for example, the limit response length so that we can get hopefully everything. Because right here we don't have the option to give a thinking budget, just like with GPT-OSS. This thing is not smart enough for a thinking budget. So I want to test this once again. I send it out. This time it should hopefully have enough tokens in order to generate the full response. And indeed, this time I got everything. Here are all your contacts in Supabase. Peter, Arnold Oberleiter, Sarah, once again a Peter, and John. That are of course my contacts. Peter, me, Sarah, once again a Peter, and John. So this worked. And now I want to show you something. If we come here on program, you see on the right side obviously that I have these things included. If I don't want to give access, for example, to the leading rows, I can simply uncheck them here. So delete a row, boom, and right now we can no longer trigger delete a row in Supabase. What we can also do is, of course, we can come back, of course, into NNN. Then we come on this editor, we press plus, and we use another tool. And like I told you, we can use whatever you want. Let's just say you want to include a vector database. You can press on it. You give an embeddings model. You use once again the Noemic embed. You make a description. This is just a stupid description. We use course test. Boom, right now we have a Supabase vector store connected. Then we press plus once again. Because you want to get like the newest crypto information from CoinGecko. You can press on it, you can connect yourself, and then you should be able to get the newest crypto information. If you press save right now, and if we come back into LM Studio, what we can do right here is, we can simply disconnect here for a moment, connect once again. I do think we need to wait a tiny bit. And boom, right now it got automatically included. We have get many coins in CoinGecko. We have the Supabase vector store. If you like these tools, leave them. If you don't want to include them, just uncheck them. And you can basically control this MCP server really precisely out from LM Studio. This is enormously powerful. And obviously, if you want to use other IDs, you can connect them exactly the same way. Even if you want to use a closed source tool, like Cloud Desktop, you can do exactly the same thing. You can come, for example, on developer, open app config file, and here you can basically use exactly the same code. So you could simply copy this code, throw it inside of Cloud Desktop, save it, close it, restart Cloud. So we close it down here. And then you will get access also from Cloud to your MCP server. Let's just wait a minute. I do think it should appear right here. There you see it, NADN. And if you press right here, you see that we can get many coins in CoinGecko, we can use our Supabase vector store, we can use get many rows in Supabase, delete a row or create a row in Supabase. Obviously, this thing is not an open source tool and this does not run locally. So keep this in mind. I just want to bring this up because I want to show you how powerful all of this is. You can basically connect every single ID that you like. This means that Cloud Desktop, LM Studio, and all your AI agents from NADN, so this agent, or maybe also this one if we include the MCP tool, all of them can share the same SQL databases, the same vector databases. You can do whatever you want. This is powerful. Please just use this. And in the next video I want to show you something really cool, because we can even use NADN to automate ConfUI. And as soon as you understand the automation of ConfUI, we will also use LM Studio as a front end to trigger ConfUI. So you don't have to look at noodles all day long. You already understand ConfUI. You know that you can generate pictures locally. But some people absolutely hate the interface of ConfUI. They want to deal with these noodles. Everything that they want to do is to simply type in a prompt, and they want to type in the prompt in a nice interface. And that's what we will do in this video. We will actually create a workflow like this, and this workflow can basically trigger ConfUI. And don't worry, this will be easier than you think, and of course we will build this in English. You don't have to look at this ugly German text. Besides this, you have even the possibility to connect it to LM Studio and give here with one press of a button access to image generation. This means that you can use LM Studio to trigger such a workflow. The workflow will trigger Conf UI and it can generate pictures. So you can basically build a ChatGPT clone. You can even integrate image generation into your LM Studio. All of this is really cool. We talk about the integration in LM Studio in the next video because first we need to build the workflow so that you can automate Conf UI. First we come of course into n8n on our local instance. And before we can build the workflow we have to install the Conf UI node, because this thing down here is not included automatically. Everything that you have to do is to come on the left side, you press on your name and you go on settings. Here on settings you will find the community nodes. And the community node that you need is this n8n nodes Conf UI. You also see the n8n nodes Conf UI image to video, so you can also use this if you want to create videos. So you need to type in exactly this name. I just want to copy this so that I don't forget it. You simply press install and then you type in exactly this name. Boom. If you have problems or if you want to find other nodes, you can simply come here on browse. And here on browse you will find actually a lot of nodes that other people have developed. As soon as you see a node that a lot of people have downloaded, here for example 6 million downloads, the chances are relatively high that this node works great. So simply take a look. And what you want to use is of course Conf UI. That's basically what I did. I typed in here Conf UI. Then you can press search and you will find some Conf UI nodes. You will even find a Conf UI CLI and a lot more. You find image to image nodes, you find media nodes, image to video, any node, and basically a lot more. The thing that I like to use is this node, so exactly this name. So type in n8n-nodes-conf UI. You can do most of the things with this node. So simply type in exactly this right here in install. Then you need to check this bar and you press install. Obviously I already did this, so of course I will not do this any longer. Then the next thing that you want to do is obviously to come back to settings here. On personal you can create a workflow. And we press plus and right now you can search for Conf UI. And we use of course the Conf UI standard node, add to workflow. Now the standard settings of this node are relatively easy to understand. Here you need to connect, we will do this in a minute. Then you need to import the JSON and you need to do this from your Conf UI. Then you have the output format. I like JPEG, but you can also use PNG if you like. Then the JPEG quality and the timeout. I would recommend you to stick with these default values. If you close this, you actually see that we can trigger Conf UI by clicking on this button. So this is the easiest way how you can trigger Conf. Obviously it will have some downfalls that I will show you in a minute. But before you can trigger your Conf, you need to connect to your Conf. If you see right here, I am already connected. If I come here on edit, you see that my connection is successfully, but yours will most likely be not. And I want to show you how you can connect to your Conf. In order to do that, we simply create a new credential and we call this credential, for example, course test. Once again. And then you need to come into your Conf. And in your Conf you come to your left upper corner, you come to settings, and on settings you can scroll down on server config. And on server config you will find the host and the port. And here you see that the port is 8000 and this is the host. And if you have already something running on port 8000, Conf will actually make a port automatically on 8001 or sometimes also 8080. This can depend a tiny bit. Most of the time the default port of 8000 will work. If you come here in this Conf node, they will try to connect to the port 8888. So what you can try is to simply press save. And then you see if it works or not. Right now you see this doesn't work, because my Conf is actually on port 8000. And if I press save right now, it should be green. Boom, there you see it. So you need to figure out where your port is. If you don't know it, you can also ask in your terminal. Just ask ChatGPT, for example, how you can find the ports that are running on your PC. But I would guess that 99% of the time exactly this port that you find here in your Conf will work. If it doesn't work, it could be 8001. And by the way, you can also set your port automatically on different ports inside of Conf if you want to. So the port that normally works is 8000. You can set it to 8001 Sometimes also Comfy can set this automatically to 8001, and sometimes it can also happen that this is your port. But like I told you, 99% of the time port 8000 will be the right port for you. Unless you have like other boards running on port 8000, like we have for example with Supabase. Right now I do not have Supabase any longer running with my Docker instance. That's why all of this is working. So I am connected. Obviously we need no API key. Here is just a default key. You can also delete this if you want. As soon as you are connected, you need to import your JSON workflow. And in order to do that, you can come back once again on your Comfy. You press right here, then you come on File, and you press Export API, because you want to make a HTTP request here. So Export API. We call this, for example, Comfy N8N. I save this on my desktop. Then we can open this, and everything that we have to do is to copy this entire JSON. So we copy this entire JSON, we come back to N8N, and here you can come on expression, you can make this big, and we import it. And here you basically see that we trigger exactly our workflow. And here is also something really cool. You see that we have down here, for example, the negative prompt. This is here bad eyes, CGI, plastic, deformed, watermark, and so on. And the positive prompt is of course beautiful lady with freckles and so on. In order to test this, you can simply press save. And what you want to do right now is, you press execute workflow. Right now your Comfy should be running. And if you come into your Comfy UI, you should also see, boom, that the K-sampler is firing up. And if you come here on Q, you see that this thing is running right now. So basically we are triggering Comfy UI directly from N8N, and you see my generation is rendering right now. And as soon as this is done, we will get our picture here. I do think we just need to do our VAED code. It will not pop up here, because it will actually pop up then inside your N8N. Boom, there we have it. So you see, it doesn't get included right here, but this picture that we have right here, so this one, should now also be inside of our N8N instance. If you press right here, you can simply press view, and then you have your picture here. And of course, if you come in your folder of Comfy UI, and if you go on outputs, the picture that we have generated right now is obviously already saved up on your local machine. So as soon as you trigger something from N8N, it will get stored automatically on your local machine. Obviously you can go on with this picture. You can, for example, download it, or you can make automations that save this picture like in other folders or something similar. But this is of course something that is not perfect. You don't want to press and always use the same prompt. That's why I want to show you how you can use, for example, a chat input trigger. So if you use simply the chat trigger, you can press on these, and now we simply connect this chat trigger down here. We can press on it, or actually I want to do open chat. I simply type in hey here, for example. I will send hey right here, and now we will get, of course, something back that makes no sense, because we need to map this. Here you can actually see that we have the chat input, so you can make this big in the expression once again. And right now, you see right here, then on this input text, this right here is the prompt. So you can actually delete this prompt, and you want to use the dynamic JavaScript variable from this chat input. So you can simply include it down here, boom. And right now, we can, for example, just type into our N8N what we want to create. If we simply press open chat, let's just say a dog in the forest. If we send this out, actually we should generate a dog in the forest, because we have this right now as a dynamic JavaScript variable. If I press on these, if I make it big on this expression, you see that my text is this variable that comes from here, and this will get now sent to Comfy UI. And Comfy UI is basically also running right now, and it's generating my picture, and I hope that I get my dog back. And obviously it worked. I get here the space64 string, but you can see inside my Comfy, obviously I got my dog here. And if I come here on N8N, and if I press view, I also got my dog. But right now I want to tell you something. It would be of course really nice if we can create better prompts here. So we don't have to like be a prompt engineer just to create some pictures that are a bit better. That's why I like to do the following. I press here plus, and I want to include an AI agent or an LLM chain. So you can also delete all of this if you want to. If we press plus right now and we use our AI agent, so this thing right here, obviously with a chat trigger, we don't want to execute by clicking. So the chat trigger, we can connect to this. we can also connect this thing down here. Then we want to use a chat model, and we use of course Ollama, because it should run locally and it should be for free. We use for example this Qwen model, but obviously you can also use OpenAI if you want to create a bit faster, it doesn't really matter. And right now we want to do something special. We want to include a system prompt that allows us to create better prompts. So I come here on expression, I make it big, I will craft a prompt and I will show you immediately what this prompt is doing. My system prompt looks something like this. You are a helpful assistant to create prompts for Stable Diffusion. Your output is a single prompt. Here is an example. Then I give basically this example that we already had in Confi. And then we type in the stuff that we want to always include. Make sure to write only one prompt for the user and include the subject, so who or what, person, animal, character, location, object, the medium, so in what form, photo, painting, illustration and so on, the environment, should it be indoors, outdoors, on the moon, the lighting, should it be soft, ambient and so on, then the colors, vibrant and so on, and then lastly the mood. Should it be playful, calm and so on. And obviously we can also include the composition, so headshot, close-up and so on. So this thing will basically help us write better prompts. And I want to make one example. If I open this up and if I type in simply dog right here, this thing will create for us a prompt that should work a lot better than the stupid dog prompt. And then we can send it to Confi. I need to wait until I get my prompt, and then we need to map this once again as a JavaScript variable. Right now this thing is running, but I do think that this thing will make a mess and I will show you why. If we come on Confi UI and if we make this big as the expression, you see that right now this thing is undefined. So we will simply generate a random picture. But we want to map the output from the AI agent down here. So we will simply delete this thing right now, and then we will insert, of course, the output of this AI agent. And you see that we include everything. The subject is right now a dog. The medium is digital illustration, the environment is in a sunny park and so on, it's in the golden hour, the colors are vibrant and so on. So generally speaking the prompt should work, but I do think that Qwen did not a great job to crafting this prompt. I do think this model is maybe a tiny bit too small for this, so I would expect that you get better prompts if you use for example a GPT OSS model. So I want to do this. I want to use this GPT OSS model because it seems at least that this Qwen model, I don't want to include subject and medium and so on. I just want to have the prompt in a style that tells me, like for example a digital illustration of a dog and so on, without these keywords included. Obviously you can also try to make this better with the system prompt if you have a model that doesn't get it, but I do think if we upgrade here to GPT OSS 20b, we are also able to generate these prompts from this system prompt. And by the way, if you wonder what picture was created, the picture was something like this, so a complete mess, because obviously we just sent it some random noise here. What I want to do right now is once again reload, and if I type in dog right now, I hope the GPT OSS will create a better prompt for me. Let's just take a look, and then this better prompt should also get sent to Confi UI, and hopefully we will get a great picture. And right now we are generating, and if I come on this node here, and if I make this big, you can basically see that indeed we got a better prompt. The new prompt is dog realistic illustration outdoors, soft natural light, pastel colors, playful close-up portrait. And I do think this is a perfect prompt for Confi UI. We have first of all the subject that has the most weight, and everything is simply sorted by comma, so we have a great prompt, just like in our example from the system prompt. We're still rendering, but I do think we are nearly through. You can see it here. So if I press on this AI agent, you basically see that we use exactly the same prompting style that I gave here as an example. And boom, right now in my Confi, you can basically see that we have rendered this picture, and I do think this is a great picture. This is an illustration of a dog, exactly what we wanted to have. And if I come here on Confi, we can press view, and basically there is our picture. But something that would be nice is of course if we could save this picture somewhere automatically. And in order to do that we can press plus, and what I like to do is I want to save this for example into my Google Drive. So I use here Google Drive because I like this, and inside my Google Drive I want to basically upload a file. So I press on it. I am already connected with my Google Drive. If you are not connected, You already understand how to do this. You need to do this exactly how you did it with Gmail. So simply give your OAuth redirect URL, your client ID and your client secret. Activate the Google Drive API inside of your Google Cloud Console, and then you are connected. Now we use as resources file, the operations upload. The input data field is exactly the stuff from here. It's called data, so this is working. Then the file name, we call this for example pic for picture. Then we use the drive, so this is from my list, basically my drive. And then the folder, I can press on this and I can search through the files that I have in my Google Drive. Inside my Google Drive I have a folder that is called MCP pic. And here I like to save some pictures from time to time, so I want to use basically exactly this folder. So we come back once again into NAN, and we use here MCP pic. This is basically the folder, boom. And if I press right now execute step, my picture will get uploaded into my Google Drive. Right now it should work. If I come into my Google Drive, the new picture should appear, boom, there it is. So here I like to save some generations that I made in Comfy with these workflows. So this works really great for me. So everything that you can do is you press open chat, you type in the things that you want to generate in this chat, or obviously you can also make this public and use this hosted chat if you like this interface more. You can share this, for example, with your company. Once again, save. Right now it should work. And right now you can basically trigger image generation from this chat. The automation will run through and everything will get saved automatically into this folder. But the next thing that you ask yourself is obviously how you can use LM Studio as a front end for these. Because you see that this is not an MCP server, this is just a chat trigger. And I will show you this in the next video, because this will work differently than you think. Because you cannot use Comfy, as you see right here, as a normal tool. You have to do this with sub workflows. So stay tuned for the next video. In this video we will use LM Studio as a front end for Comfy UI. You already know that we are connected with our MCP server. And the coolest thing would be, of course, to simply press here on Comfy UI and include it. And maybe you think that you can simply press here on Tools and search for Comfy UI, because this would make sense, but you see, Comfy UI is not really available as a tool. Here you have to work with a workaround. You need to create a sub-workflow, and you need to use when called by another workflow right here. So call an NAN workflow tool. I will show you exactly how all of this is working, because yeah, the integration of a simple tool will not work here. So what we do right now is, we save here, we come on personal, we create a new workflow, and what you want to use is when executed by another workflow. This is our first trigger. And here you can use defined using fields below, defined using JSON, or accept all data. I would recommend you to start out with accept all data. And as soon as this thing is included, you can basically add Comfy UI. So if you type in Comfy UI, you can add this, so add to workflow, boom, then you can connect it. And here you can insert, of course, once again your API calls that you find here in Comfy. So on File, Export API, and you can integrate it. And obviously this can be video workflows, this can be image workflows, this can be whatever you want. But I want to show you the even faster way. Let's just delete this for a tiny moment. We call this, for example, Comfy sub workflow course test, and we save it. Then we come back on personal once again. We come on this workflow that we have obviously already generated, because what we can do is, we can simply copy this entire workflow. So copy all of it. Then we come back on personal, we come on this sub workflow. Here we integrate our entire workflow. And what we are doing right now is, obviously, we want to delete our chat trigger, and we want to connect our event triggered by another workflow trigger. And here you will have a problem. As soon as you come on your agent, you see that we use right now the chat trigger as input node. And what we need to use is defined below. But before we do this, we simply make a test. We send some dummy data on this workflow to see what we get. So make sure to save this. Then we come back on personal. We come on our MCP tool. And right now we need to add this as a sub workflow. So call NAN workflow. And here we need to make a description. Use this tool to create picture. Then the source is the database that we have in NAN. And the workflow, here we can simply click on it and we can search for the stuff that we have made. Comfy UI sub workflow course test is obviously the name. This thing tells me this sub workflow is set to receive all input data. Without specific inputs, the agent will not be able to pass data to this tool. You can define specific inputs in the sub workflow trigger, so you can eventually do this, but I have found out that most of the time this makes no problems. By the way, if you press right here, boom, you open this in another workflow and then you can switch really fast. So we can come back, and what I am doing right now is, I simply open my chat, I use here Olama, and I can make a test in order to see if we trigger this tool. And then we can obviously make this tool better. And by the way, as soon as you press save right here, you can also come to LM Studio, and if we reload here, I would guess that we get another workflow here included. And there we have it, call ComfUI sub workflow course test. But to testing this out, I will actually come back here once again, because I do think this is like easier for testing this. And as soon as we have set up everything, we will of course trigger it from LM Studio. So for example, make a pic of a dog. If I send this out, we should trigger the MCP client. There we have it. The client will trigger the MCP server, and the server should trigger the call confi sub workflow node. Obviously we will not see this here, but in a minute we can come on executions, and most likely we will also get an error here. That's why we do here some calls, and if we come on executions, you see this call is running, and yeah, like I told you, we will get most likely a failure back, because this is not really able to generate a picture yet. And there you see it, this call workflow tool did not work. And this thing tries this right now over and over again, but this will not work. But this is enough for us. We simply want to stop this right now, because we have obviously already sent it some data. So here on executions you see that basically every single call failed. And I will show you why this is. If we come on this workflow right here, you can come on executions, and then you will see that we get all these executions, but they don't come through. And why they don't come through? Because obviously we have not used here this query. So what we need to do is we need to map this query, and we need to do this in this editor. And if you have problems to understanding JSON, I want to show you a really cool tip. What you can do is to come on executions, then you can come right here on this node. And what you do right now is you simply pin this as data. So we come here on JSON, we copy this data. So simply copy this JSON, then you come back on your editor, you come back right here. Here you go on edit, you delete the data that is inside here, and you include your new data. And then you have basically your query as dummy data included. Then you press save. This is right now pinned on your first node, and you can work with this without really having this data included. So you can come back on your AI agent. On your AI agent you will use right now defined below, and now you can map your prompt obviously manually by simply using this dummy data that we have included. You throw it in here, boom, then we have our JSON query. This JSON query is right now a dog. And then of course our helpful assistant will go on and create a great prompt from our bad prompt. And then everything goes on as you already understand it. Then ComfUI will get triggered. ComfUI will most likely work to create our picture, and everything should work, at least in theory. So let's just save this. We come back down here. By the way, these sub workflow tools, you don't have to make them at active. They can be at inactive. They will always get triggered. The last thing that I want to do is to unpin here my data. We don't need to have mock data included. So save this right now, we come back right here, and right now we test once again if we can call this tool, and if this tool gets executed, and if we can trigger ComfUI. It should work, and if it works, it will also work from LM Studio as a front end. So we come back right here, we open chat, once again, make a pic of this time it's a cat, and I send this out. We trigger the MCP client tool. This client should trigger the call confi sub workflow. This client had a success, but I need to show you something. And I do think you can maybe hear it in my voice. My PC is right now a little bit too weak, because we have to trigger one Olama model. In this second workflow you see this thing is already running, but here we need to trigger a second Olama model, and then we also need to trigger ComfUI, and my PC, yeah, it's not strong enough. You see that my VRAM are at 95%, so that's why we have these tiny failures right here. I do think I need to pause this video, and we need to wait maybe for an entire 5 minutes until we get our result back. So you see, this can take obviously a long time because we use two Ollama models here in parallel, and we also use conf.ui. This takes a lot of VRAM. If you want to make this smaller, obviously you can use even smaller models, or you can use here, for example, an OpenAI model or something similar. We are rendering right now in the K-sampler, but you obviously see that my RAM are nearly at 100% capacity. My GPU is at 100%, my VRAM nearly 100%. So you see, yeah, my PC is at its absolute limit. We have two Ollama models running in parallel. We have conf.ui running with a stable diffusion model, and I obviously also record this video. So this takes too much drain on my PC. But nonetheless, I will be patient. I will see you as soon as this is rendered, and then I will show you a workaround if also your PC is too weak. And there we are, but this took a long time. You see, I have the picture of this cat inside my confi. Obviously this also got saved on my local machine. And if I throw this aside and if I come on executions right here, you can see that the whole execution ran through, and in my Google Drive should also be this picture. So if I come on Drive, I do believe we have MCP pic, and there's the picture of this cat. So you see, this worked perfectly. But of course this is really slow. And right now I want to show you how we make this faster. The first thing is of course that we obviously no longer trigger it with this agent. Because if we use LM Studio, I have a smaller model in LM Studio, it does not work over Ollama. And we have not a lot of GPU offload in this model. That's the first part, how we can increase the speed right here. This MCP server on its own, of course, does not eat any VRAM on my machine, so this is fine. The last thing that we can eventually optimize is right here. I just make a generic example. You can do this, you don't have to do this. If I use here, for example, let's just say another LLM. We could use, for example, Grok with a Q. Here you can simply create an API key. I hope you can do this. This should be really easy. And as soon as you are connected, you can search here for models. And I will use this GPT OSS model in 20B, because we used also this on my local machine. And this Grok model is now hosted in the cloud. But this is of course not problematic for my data, because we just send a prompt on this model. And here I do believe this is absolutely no problem if we use such a model. You can use Grok, you can also use OpenRouter, and you can use free models from OpenRouter. The only thing that I don't want to have here is the drain on my machine from Ollama, because this is not sensitive data. I want to show you, for example, also OpenRouter. If you press plus once again right here, you could use OpenRouter, for example. And on OpenRouter you also find a lot of different models. I want to show you how you can connect yourself to OpenRouter. Obviously you have to make an account, so simply press create new credentials. I call them course test, save. Then of course it will not work because you need to give your API key. We come on OpenRouter, we press right here. Here you can sign up or log in, and here on models you can search for all the models that you want. Here you will find always the newest models, and you can even search for free models. If you come on the left side, you can come on prompt pricing, and if you throw this at 0, you will find some models that you can use completely for free. What you need to do to use this model is obviously to make an account. Right now I am logged in. Then you need to come on the right side on credits. And here you need to add a little bit of balance. You see that I used some credits right here, but you can simply start with $5 and you don't have to use this like a lot. And you can also use free models. I used OpenRouter somehow excessively for coding and also for other tasks, for some automations. That's why I have a little bit of a bigger bill right here. But you can obviously start with $5 and then you can simply press right here once again. You can come on keys. Then you can create a key by simply press create API key. And we call this course test. We press create. You copy this key. You come to your NIN and you insert this key down here. You press save. Now it's green. And right now you can also search here for other LLMs. Let's just use GPT 4.1 mini, but obviously you can use free models. It does not really matter what you're using. I would just recommend you to not stress your machine. Eventually use a free model from OpenRouter, use a really fast model from Grok, use whatever, and don't stress your local machine because this is obviously not sensitive data. Right now we press save here. Right here everything is fine. And now I do think we can generate a lot faster, and we can even do this, of course, with LM Studio. In LM Studio we select a fast model. I just use this Qwen 3 model that has only 2.3 GB, so I press on it, load model. I need to make sure obviously that I also have call conf.ui sub workflow course test included, and then I can basically generate pictures out from LM Studio. I just want to make a test. Make a pic of what we want to have, woman, realistic photo, and the rest the AI should decide the rest basically. Right now our tool is thinking, it is smart enough to call conf.ui sub workflow, and I already see conf.ui firing up right here. We load the clip model, then the K-sampler will work. And I hope that we render faster than with this generation. The generation is right now done. And if I come here on executions, you will actually see that the newest execution is of course the trigger of my MCP server. It triggered the call anyden sub workflow. This thing goes on. And it triggers this workflow right here where OpenRouter works this time, and on executions you can actually see that everything worked. This means that I have inside my folder, of course, this realistic picture of the woman. And this is obviously also stored on my local machine directly from conf.ui. So all in all, I do think that you have learned a lot in this video. The most important thing is that you need to understand that you cannot connect everything as a tool. You have to connect some things via a call anyden workflow tool. You simply throw the call anyden workflow tool on your MCP server, use here when executed by another workflow, and then you can go on to build out your workflow or copy the workflow that you already have. And if you do this, you are able to trigger this MCP server once again from an AI agent, even from Claude Desktop if you want to. So if you see, if we press down here on anyden, you see that I also have here this call conf.ui sub workflow course included. So I can also generate pictures from right here. So one last test, make a pic of a, let's just say turtle once again. Obviously Claude is normally not allowed to generate pictures, but we can even include picture generation into Claude. Every single thing works completely automatically. And you see that my conf.ui is already firing up. And by the way, you can also see that the generations right now, they are a lot faster than previous. Because we saved some machine power from this model here. So the generations, yeah, they are fast right now. I do think this goes through like in 30 seconds or something like this. So you can absolutely also make Claude generate pictures with a local model. Boom, the picture was generated, and we can also press here to view the turtle image. We can press open link, and Claude actually goes straight to this picture. And this is obviously also the same picture that I will have right here now. Boom! And this is also obviously the picture that was generated inside my conf.ui, because this will also be my conf.ui folder. And of course you can trigger all of this from LM Studio. So once again, long story short, I do think that you have learned a lot. Use the sub workflows, try to save up some computing power by using a closed source model or a free open source model from OpenRouter or Grok, because obviously this is not sensitive data, and then you are ready to rock with like Grok. And you can generate pictures out from LM Studio, but you can also work with Claude Desktop if you just want to include this right here. You can work with anyden directly, so you have an endless amount of options how you can give these tools thanks to these MCP servers. But most likely what you want to do is to simply give LM Studio the possibility to trigger your conf.ui so that you have a really great front-end application for your conf.ui, so you don't have to mess like with these noodles and so on. So let's just say you just like to work with LM Studio, you do stuff with your databases and so on, and sooner or later you think that you want to generate a picture, boom, you type it in here and everything works completely automatically. Congratulations, I do think you have right now a lot of really cool workflows running. In this video we will install OpenWebUI. The thing that you see right here works locally on my machine, and this has a lot of things included. It's nearly the same as ChatGPT. You can do basically everything that you want, but everything is open source. You can even connect to anyden via webhooks. We will talk about this in a minute, but first we need to talk about the OpenWebUI basics. Of course we need to install it, you need to know the interface, and you need to know all the settings that you should take in order to work with this tool properly. And I also want to make this clear. You don't have to use this tool. I really love LM Studio. I also love Anything LLM. I like Flowwise, I like N8N, I like a lot of tools, but OpenWebUI is still one of the tools. So if you think that you don't like LM Studio that much, you can work, for example, with this. This is just personal preference. If you think that you want to use Ollama, connect it to OpenWebUI and run your model in this interface instead of LM Studio, you can absolutely do this. The upside is, at least in my mind, the better UI experience. So this is like a really nice UI. But the downfall is the weaker integration of the model context protocol. So you need to think for yourself what you want to use. So right now, let's just start with installing OpenWebUI so that you can use it locally on your machine. In order to work with OpenWebUI, you need to have Ollama installed. I hope you have already done this until now. Then the next thing that you need is also Docker Desktop. Also this should be running on your machine. That's why we can come on this GitHub repo, and on this GitHub repo we will find the open source code from OpenWebUI. You see that this thing has a lot of stars, so a lot of people really loving this tool. And if you scroll down, you can basically see that this thing also gets a lot of updates. For example, 4 days ago was the last update. This is really active. Here you also see how this thing is looking as soon as this is in action. And if you scroll down a tiny bit more, you see here the key features. The setup is really easy. It supports Ollama and it also supports CUDA if you tag it in the image. It also has an OpenAI API integration. This means you can also work with like OpenAI models if you want to. You can even link to LM Studio, Grok, Mistral, OpenRouter and more. This means you can also use APIs or even LM Studio. If you like the LM Studio as a backend because it works a bit smoother than Ollama, you can absolutely do this. You can give permissions to different users and groups. It supports a lot of things. You can read this for yourself. Also Python with function calling is included. Also a small RAG application is included. Web search is included with a lot of different services. If you want to do image generation, you can also do this, but I like the way more that we took in the last videos. And of course you can use pipelines. With these pipelines you can also connect via webhook to, for example, N8N. And down here they show you how you can install this. You can install it via Python and pip. So if you want to do this with code, it's absolutely possible and it's really easy. But what we want to do is we want to use it in Docker, because it makes it even easier, I do think. They also have a small tip that if you want to use Ollama with CUDA acceleration, they have the special commands here and we will take a look at this in a minute. So here you see basically all the commands that you need. If Ollama is on your computer, use this command. This will be like most likely the command that you want to use, because you have Ollama already installed. If Ollama is on a different server, you need to use this command and you need to give your Ollama base URL. So you can also trigger your Ollama if this is running on another URL. And if you want to run OpenWebUI with NVIDIA GPU support, so with CUDA, you can use this command. And if you go down like at the last things here, you see that you have CUDA included, just like they tell you right here. If you only want to use the OpenAI API, you also have a command, but I would not recommend you to use this. And you can also use bundled Ollama support. If you're only running on a CPU, you can also do this, but yeah, this does not work great and it's extremely slow. So what we use is, of course, this first command. Ollama is already installed, so you can simply copy this command. Then you come in Docker, you simply open your terminal, and you throw this command in here, boom, and you send it out. And I have to tell you, I have already done this, and you see this, OpenWebUI is already running. I will try to find a video where I can show you like the setup a tiny bit. So what you would do is to simply include this command and then send this out. Something like this should appear, so some code will run, and then also on your machine OpenWebUI should be included. I simply pause this right now, because it is possible that this is also paused for you, and then you simply have to press play right here. And as soon as this thing is running, you see that we use here localhost 3000, but at the end of the day, we use the port 8080. So you can simply press on this link and OpenWebUI will open up. It will most likely not look like this. I will try, like I told you, to find a few pictures how it will look for you. This is here a picture from a video that I have made some time ago. You will find most likely a picture like this and you press down here on this button. Then you need to give a name, email address and password. Then you will get some information and you press OK. And then you will be most likely in an interface that looks just like the interface that I have showed you. Right now we are back at my standard interface. And because you have already included Ollama, you should be able to press on the left upper corner and use these models that you have already downloaded with Ollama. For example, this Qwen3 8B model that I somehow like. And here you can make your first test. You can type in hey, you can send it out, and then Qwen3 should answer. First it thinks, and then you'll get your answer back. So this seems to work. If these models are not included for you yet, you need to press down here on your name, you need to come on the admin panel, and here you will find a lot of settings. The settings that are important for you are these settings right here, obviously, and if you come on models, you need to give access to these models, and then you should be able to chat. So let me just walk you through this interface, because there are some settings that you need to understand. First we start on the left side. Here you see Open Web UI, you can close this down or you can open this up. This is just your sidebar. Then you find here new chat. You can press on this, obviously, to open up new chats. Then you can press search to search through chats that you have already made with Open Web UI. Then you have notes, so you can simply save some notes right here. And you have workplaces. We will talk about these workplaces in a minute, because here you can add some knowledge. You also have folders, chats, and the stuff from today, and it is sorted by date right here. Let's just come back on new chat once again. Then if you come down on the left lower side, you can press on your name. And here you have settings, the archived chats. You have a playground, the admin panel, and you can sign out. The first thing is that you should go on settings. And on settings you will find all the standard settings. So you can search, but you can also go on general. On general you will find the theme. I would recommend you to leave this at dark or the system theme. Then the language that you want to use, the notification. Then you can also obviously include a system prompt. So you type in here what you want to do. Like you are a helpful assistant for XYZ, your goal is to do XYZ and so on. You already understand the system prompts. And if you want to use advanced parameters, you press here show. And you can give obviously all the advanced parameters. So you can stream the chat response, the default settings are here add on, but you can toggle this on and off if you want to. Function calling is add on. You have a seat included, like normally you should leave this, how these things are included, but if you want to do something special, you can absolutely do this. You can increase, for example, the top K, you already understand the top K. You can manipulate the top P. You can exclude, for example, the thinking budget if you don't like it. So here you have some special settings. Besides this, you have this interface. And on this interface, you can simply toggle on or off the stuff that you like or don't like. If you want to have everything in high contrast, you can press on it and you should be able to read it a bit better. So this is just like optical right here on this interface. Then you have these external tools. If you press on them, you can manage tool servers. In order to do this, you have to press right here, and we will take a closer look at tools in the next videos. Then you have personalization. So here you have some memory. This is just like experimental. This is the same feature as ChatGPT has included. You can eventually include this, and Open Web UI will save your memories. You can also manage your memories, but this is a feature that I don't like yet, because it seems that Open Web UI saves stuff up that I don't want to save in these memories. So yeah, play with it if you want to. I would guess that this gets better over time. Then you have audio. And on audio you have speech to text settings and text to speech settings. The coolest thing is here that you have already included these things completely automatical. The speech to text engine is like not that great, but the text to speech thing is really good, and here you use Whisper. But obviously you can also try to use different models, but I would recommend you to also stick here with the default values. Then you have the data controls, so you can import chats for examples or delete chats. You have the account, here is some information stored for you, and you can even make API keys to call Open Web UI from different applications, and you have these about settings. Here you just get some infos like on what settings you are and so on. But we can close this down. These are the standard settings. Besides these standard settings, you have here also this playground and the admin panel. If you press on the playground, you can give here a system instruction, you can type in here the message and you can run it. This is basically similar than the OpenAI playground, but obviously this is really limited. And you can also see the completions. So you have the chat and the completions like somehow like an API. This playground is not, it's not that great, I have to admit it. Besides this playground, we have the admin panel. And here are some settings that are like really useful. The first is users, so you can make groups and you can make roles, like you can be the admin, of course, right here, but you can also include different groups. If you want to set this up in your organization, you can give different groups different access to different models and so on. This could be practical. Then you have these evaluations, so you can evaluate different models against each other. Then you have the functions. Here you see that I have a NNN pipe included, so we can do function calling to different pipelines via webhooks. Like I told you, we will take a look at this in the next video. And we have all of the settings, and on the settings you have here the general settings. Normally I leave them how they are. We have the connections. So if you want to use the OpenAI API, you can also include it, and you can give an OpenAI API key. Here the Ollama API is also included. Then you have the models. Here are the models that you are using right now. I just use the Ollama models. Also here some evaluation. Then these external tools, the documents. Here on these documents, this is important because you can give chunk size and chunk overlap. If you want to build a RAG application, here is where you make the settings. We will talk about this also in a minute. Then you can include a web search. If you want to include a web search, you have to give an API key. We have the code execution, the interface, and also here once again the audio. And here you see that we use Whisper locally as the base model. You have images. On images, we use as the default settings the OpenAI API. Here you have to give the OpenAI API key, and then you make API calls to create pictures from OpenAI, but obviously this will not get rendered locally and you have to pay for these calls. And down here the pipelines once again and the database. If you come back once again here on chat, you have also in the right upper corner some settings. You can use temporary chat if you don't want to save your chat. Besides this, you have here these controls. These are the same controls that you also find in your settings. So you can set your system prompt also here and you can give this special settings if you want to. And right here you have once again settings, archive chats, playground and so on. These are basically the same settings as you see down here, but here are some more options included. You can also go onto the documentation, onto the releases and onto the shortcuts. So if you want to read further, just press on it and you will be on the whole documentation from OpenWebUI and you will get a complete overview of this tool. Besides this, you can also come back once again and press on these shortcuts and see what you can do if you like to use shortcuts. I do think this was a great first look. In the next video I will show you how this thing works in action and then we will use a webhook. In the last video you saw all the settings and in this video I will show you some of the capabilities. The first thing that I want to show you is obviously that you can talk via Whisper to this thing. So if you press here on dictate, you can tell your prompts. I just want to use this Quen model once again. If we press right here, can you tell me a small story please? You see that the dictation works perfectly. The next thing that I want to show you is that you can also talk with an AI model, but I have to tell you this is like, it's somehow bad. You can press on voice mode and you can test this. Hello, can you say something back to me?
Hello. How can I assist you today? It here you they like to chat about technology, culture, daily life.
So you see, yes, it works, but it's not that great. Let's just put it this way. And of course, you already know it, you can try to tweak this in the settings. Take a voice that talks a little bit better in English. This was a German voice from me. But it's not perfect. Besides this, you have this right here, these integrations. And here you see that I have right now the web search included and a code interpreter. So if you press on these, you can basically use the code interpreter and you can run some Python code here. You can test this out if you want to. But what I want to show you is the web search, because in order to use this web search, you need to enable it. You already understand it, but we need to connect it to an API key basically. So you come on the admin panel, settings, web search, and what you need to do is, you need to give here an API key. The first thing is that you need to use the web search engine. And I used here the Brave Search because I like the Brave Search API. And then you give the API key. So you can simply come, for example, on this Brave Search API. You need to make an account. I do think that you have to give your credit card, but you can absolutely start for free. Then you can log in. Here you need to come on API keys. You can create the API key and you can basically give it here and then you can search the web. So simply press on it and search the web if you like to, but you need to give your API key. Then the next thing that you can do is here press plus. And if you press plus, you can upload files, you can make captures, you can attach web pages, you can attach notes, you can attach knowledge, or you can reference chats. If you press on reference chats, you can basically reference the chats that you already made right here. If you attach knowledge, the RAG technology will work, but we have not included this yet. That's why I want to show you this in a minute. These notes, they are simply for you, so leave some notes if you want to. If you want to search a specific web page, give the URL right here. And if you want to upload files, you can totally do this and you can make summaries and so on. It's important to understand that if you upload files right here, this is not the RAG technology. You can simply ask something about this data that you have uploaded, but this will not be perfect. And that's why I want to show you the RAG technology next. So this is basically this attached knowledge. In order to get access to this attached knowledge, you have to come on the admin panel. You need to go to settings. And here you find the documents, as you already understand. And now you can include the things that you want to. You can include PDF extract images, so you can use OCR. If you press right here, also OCR is included. You can bypass embedding and retrieval, but we don't want to do this. So we want to have retrieval included. You use the chunk size. So for me right now it are 1000 chunks and the chunk overlap is at 100. As soon as this is set up perfectly for you, you can come on the left side on workplace. And here you come on knowledge. And on knowledge you press plus. You give this new knowledge base a name, like dog training, a description if you want to, it's private for me, create knowledge. And right here you can upload files of course. You can simply drag and drop the files here. For me it's this Doggo PDF, just as an example. And you see, this PDF will get right now embedded, and then we can query against it. And if I come on models and then back to knowledge, you see, boom, that my dog training collection is here included. I can also come on it and add new documents later if I want to, so that we have RAG really organized and included. Besides this, you can also use prompts. So if you want to include different prompts, you can import them so that you can use them here immediately. And you can also use different tools and import tools. But for us is right now the RAG technology important. If you use new chat right now, you can actually press plus, attach knowledge, and then we have this Doggo PDF and you can query against this Doggo PDF. This is relatively fine, so this knowledge is right now embedded, and this is how RAG works. I just want to walk you briefly through all of this because you already understand all these techniques. This is just about the interface so that you do everything right. And I'll see you in the next video as soon as I show you how you can set up this n8n pipe so that you can use this as a front end for n8n. In this video I want to show you how you can use OpenWebUI as a front end for n8n. The first thing that I want to show you is how you can include a MCP server inside of OpenWebUI. And I have to tell you immediately that this thing does not work that great. OpenWebUI, at least right now, has here some bugs from time to time, so I would guess that this will not work as it should be. The first thing that you can do is to press here on your name, then you come of course on your admin panel, you come on settings, and on settings you search for external tools. On these external tools you can press plus, and here you need to use the type, not OpenAI API. You want to press on it and you want to use MCP streamable HTTP. Here you need to give the API base URL, and you can also leave the verified connection add-on. If you do this, you need to insert a bearer API key, you need to give a ID, a name and a description. And if you come actually on your MCP server, so on this thing right here, you can press on it, you can come on this production URL, make sure that this thing is active once again of course, so come on this production URL and copy it. If you want to actually connect this with a bearer auth and with this enabled, of course, you would also use here a bearer auth, I have already done this, and you give a bearer auth token. But I would simply try to not do this, so I use here none. I come back once again and I simply toggle this off, I give here my base URL, so we simply include this base URL. Then we give an ID, a name and a description, but you see that you don't really get ID and description and so on right here in this MCP server trigger. But you can also use like random numbers or something like this. So I do something like this. And then we simply press save. And remember to don't connect to MCP servers that are malicious. So we press save. Right now you see that the connection saved successfully and you can press on new chat. And if you press here right now, you have these tools. And on these tools you can press on NNN. And right now NNN is included. And if you have luck, you can eventually also call it. In order to do that, I use the Quen model. I include these tools once again. I simply type in hey first and I send it out. And a lot of times, I have to admit it, I get problems here. Maybe I do something wrong. I am not entirely sure. But I would guess that this MCP server will not work that great in OpenWebUI. If you program a server in Python yourself, I have actually done this a few times. You can use this here. And this is also like working somehow. But with NNN, I have always problems and I don't know exactly why. Like I told you, maybe you know it, I didn't find anything on the internet and I couldn't figure it out. Sometimes it worked and sometimes it doesn't. And that's why I want to show you the next way. So I simply want to delete this, then we come back once again on this admin panel. I hope that OpenWebUI fixes these because this is, to be honest, a mess. On these external tools I cannot figure it out how to do this reliable. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I used it with the Bearer API key, I tried to do it a little bit with these IDs, but most of the time I have problems and that's why I want to delete this. And right now I want to show you how you can actually do this. Now the first thing is that you close your NNN and that you restart it with a tunnel. So on a Node.js command prompt you type in NNN --tunnel and you open it up. To make this as fast as possible, I simply go here on my hosted instance. The only thing that we need to have is an instance that we can trigger from outside. Because even reaching NNN made some problems for me from time to time. If you run everything in the same Docker container, it should eventually also work. And right now I want to show you how we can actually connect OpenWebUI to NNN. The first thing that you need in NNN is of course a webhook. So we simply type in webhook. And we use this as our first trigger. Boom. And then we simply send data to this webhook and we will work with this data. Before we can do this, we need to come into OpenWebUI once again. And inside of OpenWebUI, you need to come to these functions. And I hope you to remember where these functions are. I want to show you this once again. If you come actually on a new chat, you press here once again and you come obviously in this admin panel and here are these functions. And on these functions you see that I have a NNN pipe already included. Basically what you can do is, you can search these functions right here if you already understand them. You can also search here for pipes, you can use filters, actions and so on. You can also press plus and actually create new functions by writing the code for this function yourself. This would be most likely for a lot of people like beyond their head. And that's why we do the easiest part. So you simply press down here, discover a function. And if you press on these, you will find a lot of different functions. You find here, for example, a pipeline for O3 Pro, O1 Pro support. So if you want to use specific OpenAI models, you can do this with this right here. Then you find a pipe for the Anthropic models. And down here are two pipes. We find the NNN pipe and the NNN pipeline. These are two, to be honest, similar pipelines, and you can actually just press on them. I have already this NNN pipe running. I would recommend you to use this NNN pipe. But I want to show you this with this pipeline. You can also use this one if you like it. If you press on this pipeline, you see that this pipeline got an update 1 day ago. It is 9 months old. And a lot of people have downloaded this pipeline. And here you always see the owner, so the creator is on dev. The pipe that I use normally is this pipeline down here. But I just want to show you this with that one, so that we can include a new one. Everything that you have to do is to simply press get. And here you need to press get started. I do think that you have to create a new account here, so sometimes this can be necessary. You need to log in yourself with email and password. If you don't have an account, you need to create an account down here. I already have an account, that's why I press login. You will be on a web page that looks something like this, and then you can come back once again to these pipelines. You press once again on this pipeline, then you can press get once again, And here you need to import it to Open Web UI. And we use obviously this localhost. So this is basically exactly the URL that you also find inside your Docker, so localhost 3000. So we import it to Web UI. And here you will find some code, and you don't have to do anything in this code. Here is everything handled completely automatically for you, so you simply press save and confirm. And right now your new pipeline will get included. Right now you see that I have two pipelines included, the normal NNN pipe and this NNN pipeline. Now of course you need to activate this pipeline. You can use one of these two, they are really similar. And if you press on these three dots, you can edit this pipeline. You are back once again in this code, and like I told you, you don't have to use this code. That's really cool. You can just comment these values, and on these values you will find actually an NNN URL. You will find the bearer token, the input field, the response field, send conversation history, and so on. And here you need to give the path to the webhook that you want to trigger. And to show you that this pipeline is relatively similar, you can also come here to values. And here it's completely the same. You will find the same values, but here are, to be honest, a little bit less values that you need to include. And that's why I like this pipeline also a tiny bit more. But you can use both of them, just like I told you. To make this easy, I want to work with this NNN pipe. But the settings are completely the same. You can leave also here everything at the default value. You just need to make sure that this thing is enabled. You come here on these values, and here you need to type in the NNN URL. For us, it's of course this URL from this webhook. So you come on this webhook, make sure that this thing is active, so make this active. You come on this workflow, you come on the production URL. This right here is get, but we want to have a post URL. So we copy this post URL, then you come back right here once again, and you include here your URL. Boom. Next we need the bearer token. In order to get this, we come back here in our NNN, we come on this webhook, and on this webhook we need to use an authentication. We use a header auth, and on header auth we need to create a new one. I call this, for example, course test Open Web UI. Then we need to give a name, and the name should be authorization. So we call this authorization, and down here we want to come on expression, and we type in bearer, and here we need to give our value. I just use Arnie1 for example, and I also copy this Arnie1 because we need this. So right now we save this, then we can come back to Open Web UI, and then we need to type in the NNN bearer token, and my NNN bearer token is obviously Arnie1. And the response field is output. We can simply leave this as it is. Here you can also use the default values, so the response field are normally just the default values. So you press save right now. As soon as this is saved, you see that the values updated successfully. Then you can press on a new chat, and you have already included this, and you see that we are right now in this NNN pipe. And if we type in right now, hey, we should actually call this workflow. Right now you see that this seems to not work, but let me tell you this is working. If we come on our NNN, we can actually come on executions, and here on executions you see that we actually trigger this workflow. And if we press on these, you see basically everything that comes through, but obviously we are not responding here. But if we come back down here on this first call, you see that if we come down here, the chat output is here, hey. So you can actually also come here on JSON. We copy these, we come on editor, we set this as mock data, so we delete the old one, include the new one, we press save, boom, right now we have our mock data. Then we can press plus once again, and we can use, for example, an AI agent. Press on this agent, we use here defined below, and on defined below we actually map the chat input that comes here through, boom. Then we use a chat model, we can obviously use Olama or whatever we want to use. Just for a quick brief test, so everything works a bit smoother and faster, I use here this OpenAI mode. I can also unpin my mock data right now. We press save for a tiny moment, and then we test this once again. So we come back in our Open Web UI, and we type in hey once again. We send this out. We come back in our NNN, we come on executions, and you see that our execution comes through. Everything worked, and we have also our output. And if we want to use this AI agent to talk back to our Open Web UI instance, we can simply use a respond to webhook node. In order to do that, we press plus, We search once again for a webhook, and this time it's respond to webhook. And we use the first incoming item here. You could also use eventually all, but the first incoming item is like most of the time fine. And maybe you see what's happening right here. First we trigger our webhook. And you see we do this via HTTP request. We use our HTTP post method in order to post stuff from OpenWebUI directly to NNN. Then this AI agent will do the heavy lifting. And lastly, we use the respond to webhook node to respond back to OpenWebUI. But before this is working, we need to come once again on our first webhook. And here we don't want to respond immediately. We want to using respond to webhook node so that the workflow runs through before it responds. And if we come back once again here, so first obviously we need to save. So if we come back once again here and we type in hey right now, I would guess that we will get the answer back.
How can I assist you today?
That we get the answer back from our AI agent, and that's exactly what's happening. And I do think that I no longer want to include the reading out loud stuff. So we come in the admin panel and I toggle this off. So we use this off and we press save. And right now I hope you see what we can do. Obviously we can use this AI agent and include different tools. So if you would press plus for example, and you would use, let's just say Supabase. So the Supabase tool, we can for example use row, and we want to have like get rows, and then we can simply get the rows from Supabase, so the rows that we have right here. But you can do more, and I hope you understand how to do this. You could obviously also press plus, you could use call NNN workflow, you would type in for example use this to generate pictures, then you would choose from the list the workflow that you want to trigger. For example, a conf.ui workflow, and then you can trigger conf.ui. What you can also do, obviously, is you can delete also this. You can press plus. You can use the MCP client tool, and you can connect to every single endpoint that you want. So you could use, for example, this server, and this server can then create rows, delete rows, get rows. It can call conf.ui. It can use this vector database, and it can also trigger CoinGecko. But because you understand all of this, I actually want to show you something new in the next video. We will actually connect to an API so that you also understand how to set up HTTP requests. So I delete this and I'll see you in the next video as soon as we set up a HTTP request. But remember, you can use as tools, like every tool that you find here. You can call all your other NNN workflows, and you can also use the MCP client to connect to the clients that you already have. You can do everything from this workflow. So I'll see you in the next one as soon as we talk about HTTP requests. In this video we will talk about HTTP requests. First we will simply use this agent and we will add one or two tools. Of course this is connected to our OpenWebUI interface, and this means that you can do then a lot of things from this agent. The first thing that I want to include is to simply a Gmail tool, just so that you can check that this thing is also somehow smart. We simply want to send an email to the address that we say. The subject is also the stuff that we say we send text, the message will also the AI decide. And we don't want to have an attribution. You already understand all of this, that's why I make this fast. Then the next thing that we want to do is to press save, and we will trigger right now once again a sub workflow. We simply come on personal, create new workflow, we press plus. When executed by another workflow, you already understand this. And what we are using right now is a HTTP request. So we simply press plus, and we use right now the HTTP request node. If you press on these, you can basically see that you can make HTTP requests to nearly every single URL that you want to use. And what we want to do is, we want to make an HTTP request to replicate. On replicate you will find a lot of image models, a lot of video models, and you can generate stunning stuff. If you come here on Explore, you see the video models, the language models, and the image models. So you can also use video models, and you can trigger, for example, Cdance or Veo3 from Google, or Minimax, and a lot more. So you can also generate videos with this application. We just want to make this cheap because these videos, they can get a bit expensive over time. That's why we go simply on image models, and we use ByteDance Cdream 4. because this gets used like a lot on this web page. This has 4.4 million runs. This is an excellent image model. And if you press on it, you will actually see that this is also cheap. You only pay 3 cents per image. So this is absolutely fine. Everything that you have to do is of course to make here an account and add a little bit of balance. This is really easy. You can simply connect yourself with your GitHub profile, so as soon as you come on this web page they will ask you if you want to connect. Then you can come on your profile, you come on API tokens, then you can come basically on billing, and here you add like $5 or something, and then you can generate a lot of images with really stunning quality. Then you come back once again for example on the Seedream model, and with the Seedream model you want to come on this API. And on this API you will find some endpoints. You will find Node.js, you will find Python, so if you are a developer you will most likely know what to do with this. And we want to use HTTP, because we want to make a HTTP request. And they basically tell us how to use this model. And the coolest thing is here that you don't have to do anything. You can simply copy these, because we can import this as a curl. So you see, we copy these, then we come back into our NNN, you press import curl, you can simply copy paste the curl in here, then you press import, and everything is set up for you. The only thing that you need to integrate is, obviously, your authorization. And here you see it, name is authorization, and the value is here a bearer API key. And that's where you need to put your API key. If you want to do this safer, you can also use here authentication. You would here press on generic credential type and create your bearer token here. But I just want to make this as simple as possible, and we include this API key here, because this is just for testing purposes. In order to get your API key, you already know how to do this. Basically here you will find your keys. I call this course test, create token, then you can copy this token, we come back to NNN, we delete this one, we include our new token. And there we are. And I will obviously delete this token after this course. And by the way, you only see a part of this token, so there is no point in copying these. And then everything else is basically already set up just how you need it. Down here on JSON you can also come on expression and make this big to see what's happening. Basically we will send a prompt, and right now we have a hard-coded prompt, so obviously we will change this prompt. And inside this prompt you can actually see what will get generated if we test this out. So a photo of a storefront called Seedream 4, it sells books, a poster and so on. And lastly you see the aspect ratio with 4:3. So what we can do is we can press execute step, and then we should get our picture back. Right now I have done this, and you should basically see, let's just see, down here we have a get. And we also have this output, here is this JPEG, so this should basically be our picture. If we include this right here, boom, there you see it. This is our picture. Right now we can simply download this picture or upload it to Google Drive or do whatever with this picture. So we could simply press plus right here. And I added 3 nodes that I already set it up in another account just to save you some time. So you see we have once again a HTTP request, and I called this Daten bekommen. But obviously we can also call this in English, this simply means get data. So rename, get data. Then this here is basically get picture, get back. And lastly we have obviously upload file to Google Drive. And I will show you what happens here. Basically we will create here this picture with this HTTP request, then we get this data, we do this by a GET request this time, so no longer a POST request, and we simply use the JSON URLs from the GET that you already saw, so this picture. We use once again here the generic credential type, and we connect to replicate with our API key. This should be easy. Then once again the GET picture on itself with the URL, this is simply to download this picture, and then we can upload this to Google Drive. And what we need to do right now is of course to map our prompt. And in order to do that we connect this thing down here, we press save, and we call this right now, let's just say course test replicate. Obviously we want to save this. Now we switch gears, we come back on personal, we come on this workflow, and on this workflow we press plus, and we use a call NNN workflow tool, and we type in use this workflow to generate pictures. And we use obviously the course test replicate workflow, and we send data. All of this should in theory work right now, but if you paid a little bit of attention, we need to do one more step, and I will show you this if you don't get it until yet. If we come here on Open Web UI and if I say, make a pic of a cat that holds a beer with the letters I like it, and I send this out. So basically we are calling our NLN workflow and we will get an error back. And I will show you in a minute why. So if we come to NLN and if we come on executions, you can basically see that obviously we will use this workflow. And this has the error because we did not map our data, obviously. So we come back once again, of course, on personal. Then we come on our course test replicate. On course test replicate, we come on executions. And here you see basically the execution that comes here through. So we can press on this. And I also messed up because I used defined fields below and so on. Yeah, we need to do this again. Sometimes I mess up. We need to do accept all data. We press save. Right now we need new dummy data. So I send basically the same prompt once again. Copy, include, we send it. We will get an error back once again. We also have a complete, but I want to show you what happens here if we come on execute. Basically everything got through, but what did not work is the upload file. If we press here on get pictures, we can also press view. The only failure here is that we have right now obviously the picture with the prompt from replicate, but we do want to map our prompt. Because if we simply type in the prompt here, we will still get the prompt that is as default value. In order to fix this, we come here, of course, right here. And here we come on this JSON, we copy this JSON, so from here until here. We come on this editor, and we set here, of course, some mock data. So we delete this one, insert this, we press save, boom. Now we come in our HTTP request, and in the HTTP request we want to map our prompt. So we make this big. Down here you see the prompt, it goes from here until here. We want to include this query, boom. And right now we have mapped our prompt. So this should work. Now we press save. Right now we should be able to generate these pictures. I unpinned this mock data, this dummy data, and the last thing that did not work was upload file. Why did upload file not work? I need to sign into Google. Boom, right now I am connected with Google. And we upload in the folder MCP pic. So I do think right now everything should work. If we come once again on Open Web UI, and if I use this prompt once again, I copy these, I include it once again here, and I send it out, then we will actually get hopefully the right things back that we want to have. And this thing is telling me that it worked. And if we come to NLN, let's just come on our standard workflow first. So on this thing right here, if we come on executions, you see that everything comes here through. We have used this call workflow tool, and we also use the respond to webhook. If we come obviously on this workflow, we should also be able to come on execution, and the latest execution comes here through. So we should have here a picture with this cat. If I press view, you see, boom, I like it. So the cat that drinks beer, and this should be obviously also saved in my Google Drive folder right now. Let's just take a look. So Google Drive, MCP pic. And there is also obviously the picture that we have generated. And this is basically how you can make also HTTP requests. Normally it's relatively easy. You simply use a HTTP request, and here you can use post, get, put, delete and so on. And if you find a web page where you can import this curl, it makes it enormously easy. And if you don't find this, you need to give a URL, most of the time authentication, and down here you need to generate a JSON. And in this JSON you have to map a prompt or something like this. You can also use ChatGPT to help you with these. But most of the time what I like to do is to simply import a curl, because we find a lot of different curls that we can import. And this is how you can make HTTP requests. But still, I need to show you one more thing. If we come back once again on our standard workflow, you see that we can not only generate pictures, but we can do more. And I will show you what we can do. Let's just take a new chat. We use this NLN pipe. We type in hey, for example, then this workflow should simply answer us without like making fancy stuff. Boom, it worked. And if I tell this workflow, send a mail to this email and tell him, hey, I can send this out, and this thing should now also send mails for me. And of course, you can obviously make this thing a lot better. You can tweak the system prompt, as you already understand. I just want to show you that everything is possible. If we come back right here on these executions, I would guess that we have triggered right now the Gmail tool, and here you see it. You see that we used 2 requests. The first one is for sending the mail, and the second one is then for responding to the webhook. Let's just see, boom. And if I come in my mails, I should basically have this mail that tells me like, hey. And indeed, I have a message from me that got in at this second that tells me, hey. And I can generate pictures, I can do whatever, and obviously you can simply improve the system prompt and you can do a lot of interesting stuff with these workflows. So congratulations, you can do everything that you want with Open Web UI. You can use all of these different models, you can do the standard things that are included right here, or you can connect to an NLN pipeline, and you can also tell your prompts by pressing on dictate. You can also let this thing talking back to you, but I don't love this. Yeah, you can try it if you want to, and you can automate with NLN whatever you want. And obviously, you don't have to use this OpenAI model. Just use Ollama. I just use this for testing purposes so that my machine is a little bit faster while I am recording this. So have fun trying all of this out. I am sure you can come up with really cool workflows here. You can automate anything, and if you like Open Web UI as a front end, you can do all of it also in Open Web UI. And you can even call different APIs with HTTP requests. Obviously the downfall is that it doesn't work locally, but of course you already understand how to trigger conf UI. I just wanted to include this to make a course complete, because I do think that an API call should also be included in an AI course. I want to talk briefly about OCR. Generally speaking, we have already talked about OCR. OCR stands for Optical Character Recognition, and obviously you can also do this in Open Web UI. Everything that you have to do is to use a model that has vision included, for example Gemma 3 12b. If you come on Ollama and if you go on these vision models, you will find a lot of vision models. You have Qwen 3 VL, this stands for Vision Language. This is a great model, but this is only available in the cloud. Then you have this Gemma 3 model, you have Lava, you have also down here a great model that's called Qwen 2.5 VL. I do think that the 2 best models are this right here, and also the Gemma model is great. So use one of these 2 models. The next thing that you can do is to do OCR, obviously in Open Web UI. You simply use this model, you can upload the image, and then you can simply ask, hey, can you please do OCR? Just like you saw right here. And then you can extract all the information, and I checked the information already, and the informations are accurate. And you see that we can even extract this down here. This is handwritten text. So you see, all of this works really precise and relatively good. This is perfect if you want to have all of this as text file. And what you can do right now is, of course, also press export to CSV, and then you have it right here. And you can even open this in a CSV file. This is also really great. At least these numbers right here. But for some people this is not enough. Some people want to automate this, and I want to show you how also automating this could work. If you come for example into an NLN, I already built a really simple agent. This is an agent with Ollama, with the Gemma 3 12b model. And if we come here on this chat input, you can simply allow file upload. Then you can simply upload these files. This is the same in voice. And also this can give you back, of course, exactly the same output. And here comes something interesting right now. Obviously you can go on with this text. So you can do, for example, plus, and you can store this into Google Drive or wherever you want to. You already saw how all of this is working. This means you can simply upload a file, this thing will do OCR for you, and this output you can immediately save this, for example, into Google Drive. This is relatively cool. The next thing that you can also do is to actually ditch this trigger right here and use here, for example, a Gmail trigger. You can, for example, filter your mails, see what mail is, for example, an invoice, and every invoice goes automatically in this agent, and the agent will do OCR for you and saves this, for example, into a Google Sheet. Also, this is a good use case. And obviously one of the easiest things is that you come here on templates, you search for different templates, and you type in here, for example, OCR. And here you will find an endless amount of OCR templates. Some of these templates will trigger by Telegram. On other templates you can upload PDFs. I am relatively sure that you will find the right workflow for you. This could be also an interesting workflow. Obviously some of these workflows are big, and I do think some of them are too big, but you should absolutely take a look at these workflows. Actually, I want to show you another workflow that I used from time to time. I have a workflow actually with OpenAI that does something like this. I can simply upload in Telegram a picture. Then we will capture the Telegram data. I will receive my file, then I will download the file will go into the AI agent, we convert the file, and then we upload it to Google Drive. Obviously I can share this workflow for you. I just want to bring this on the table. So what I can do is, I can make a picture, for example with Telegram, and then the invoice gets stored automatically into my Google Drive folder. And everything works without me lifting a finger. I just want to bring this up, and I have to tell you, I have here some problems with local LLMs. This is just a model that I use over the API. I am also here in the cloud account, because I want to do this also while I am on the way. If these invoices are not that sensitive, you can obviously also do this with closed sourced models, and you can do everything in the cloud. That's why I will also share this workflow with you, so you can simply play with these things a tiny bit around, and maybe you will also find a workflow directly from the workflows from NNN. I just wanted to bring this up because some people, I would guess at least, want to automate this. And if you want to do this with full privacy, obviously use something simpler, maybe not with a Telegram trigger, and try to work here with Ollama. I am sure you can come up with really interesting use cases. You can also store this in the Google Sheets, you can do whatever you want. I would guess that you are capable enough to figure this out for yourself right now, and if you are not, just hit me up with an email. I am always here to help you. I will try to find a workflow, and I can also add new lectures. Now obviously, you have countless other things that you can do with NNN. Here is one, to be honest, hard workflow. But this workflow is really great. By the way, this workflow is generated by Browser Workflows. Browser Workflows is a previous student of my AI courses. This is the complete video that breaks down the entire workflow in detail. So you can also leave him a follow on YouTube. He's a student of mine, and he sent me this video, and he told me that I can absolutely share this workflow in future courses or in YouTube or wherever I like, and I do think the workflow is great, and that's why I want to bring this up. He had a great idea and I want to share it. I just want to show you what this workflow can do. Basically, we have a scheduled trigger, and this thing triggers every single hour. And what is this workflow doing? First of all, it thinks for a video theme, then it will generate prompts for a video model, then we will use either LTX or 1.2.1, both of it in ComfUI. You can decide for yourself what route you want to use. Then we will save the clip locally on our disk. We will give this file a name. We will create all in all 3 different videos, all of it with ComfUI. Then we throw everything in a merge node. We will execute 2 commands to add audio to our video models. In order to do that, we use FFmpeg, and then we can upload the video to YouTube. First we think for a video theme, we throw it in this merge node, and obviously we also store this file on our disk. So first we store the normal file, then we will include our audio, then we save the file with the audio on our local machine, then we merge it together with the video title, and then we upload it to YouTube. This means you have a complete social media content machine running directly locally from your PC. Your PC can render videos, can add audio to these videos, and can post it automatically on social media. This is just something that I want to throw in the room for you. Obviously, you can also use local models. I used here an open router model for this workflow. And I do think that you understand how to connect all of it. I have to tell you, this is just like more for playing. I would not recommend you to really run this workflow. But if you want to do a complete deep dive into ComfUI videos with audio, with time triggers, with posting immediately on social media, you can eventually take a look at this workflow. This workflow will be a little bit harder, but generally speaking, everything is set up. You just need to connect everything, and then you can run this. But obviously, once again, I would not recommend you to flood social media with such videos. This is more like for testing purposes. I just want to show you what's possible. And as soon as these models get even a bit better with these local models, I would assume that we can also generate really high quality stuff for social media. For right now, I do think working with APIs works a tiny bit better. For example, the Vio API or the Zora API. But these videos obviously cost a bit. You pay $3 to $6 per video if you want to generate this over the API. And obviously with these models you can do this completely for free. So actually I will share this workflow for you. See this more as an inspiration, what's possible, and maybe also what's possible in the future, because I would not recommend you to run this workflow and post immediately on social media. This is more just that you understand that you can use time triggers if you want to trigger something every single day. And if you want to upload immediately to social media, it's also possible. What I will do is, I will save this, I will download it, I will share it with you. Like I told you, it's more for inspiration. This thing is just here so that you understand that you can build whatever you want if you are a bit creative and if you are willing to figure it out. In this video I want to talk about fine-tuning. Generally speaking, you have the possibility to fine-tune a model specifically for you. And you can connect this model to every single provider that you want. So generally speaking, you can use a fine-tuned specific model for your specific use case in every single application that you want to use. And a lot of people tell you that you nearly have to do this, that you have to fine-tune a model to get the best out of your application. And in this video we will take actually a look if this is true. A small little spoiler, I don't think that this is necessarily true. And before we start, you need to understand what fine-tuning is. Let's just make an example. I just simply make this thing right here. We assume that this is an AI model, the AI model that you want to use. And of course, if you type in stuff, it will spit stuff out. This thing right now has no personality. Of course, you need to write the system prompt in order to get a personality. You need to write a system prompt, you need to include direct technology and so on, and then generally speaking this model behaves how it should behave. But you actually also have another option. You can do fine-tuning. If this is the whole model, let's just make a new one. If this is the whole model, they call this base model, or basically also like instruction model. We don't use the base model that often, we use an instruct model. I don't want to go into the weeds of this model training. I just want to tell you that you have the possibility to retrain a small part of the whole model. And what you can do in this small part, actually what we do is, we make a small LoRa training. We call this L-O-R-A. LoRa stands for low rank adaptation. And you can make a LoRa training and you can basically feed specific examples, and one part of this model gets then fine-tuned. You can feed a lot of JSON examples with a specific data set how this model should behave, and then this model will behave a little bit more like it should behave. Maybe understand this from image generation. If you ever used an open source model like Flux or Stable Diffusion, you can also do LoRa training. If you use a bunch of pictures, maybe from your face, you can train your face inside the model. Also, this is called LoRa training. And with this LoRa, you can actually create pictures that you want to create, for example, from your face. And you can also think like completely the same with these LLMs. You can feed it a lot of examples, then a small part will get retrained, and this model will behave a little bit more like you want it to behave. I want to tell you one problem of this fine-tuning. One problem is overfitting. What does overfitting mean? If you feed a lot of example, the model gets smarter in your specific example, but all in all, it gets a little bit dumber. And this is of course not really that nice. Your model needs to be good, of course, in every single domain that it needs to answer. It should be really good at function calling, because most likely you want to include tools. And if your model gets dumber in function calling, this is not great. Of course, a system prompt will do the job at least as good, and this thing makes actually the function calling better and not worse. Nonetheless, if you think you want to try fine-tuning, I want to give you an example how you can try this, so how you can train these models. If you want to do fine-tuning on an open source model, you have the possibility to use the fine-tuning guide from Onslaught. I have tried this a few times, but I have to tell you, I don't like it that much. Basically what you can do is, you can either use a free Google Colab notebook, or you can use Kaggle or something similar and also train it locally if you want to. You need to have at least 3 GB in VRAM. They have some examples with a Llama 3.1 8B model. And you will also find a GitHub repo where they have, I do think, like 100 entire Colab notebooks, and you can simply train every single open source model that you want to. For example, a Gemma 3 4B model, a Qwen 3 base model in 4B, a Llama 3.2 vision model, a DeepSeek model, and so on. Basically, if you want to fine-tune such a model, you can use such a Google Colab. They have the same thing, obviously, also for text-to-speech, for vision, and so on. But keep in mind that you will get overfitting. This will not work that great. If you come actually in one of these Colab notebooks, let's just say for Qwen 3 14B, here is basically the entire code, and you can simply run this line by line. It's relatively easy to do, but I have to tell you, I had not the best experience in fine-tuning these open source models. Generally speaking, we are in an open source course, but I think that you will waste a lot of time. If you really have to fine-tune a model, basically use a closed source model. So if you do LoRa training with such a 16-bit GGUF model, yeah, it will not work that great. I want to show you the OpenAI platform. If you have to do fine-tuning, I would use OpenAI, but still then, I would think, yeah, it's not really worth it. If you really want to give this a shot, just try it. You can also go down with these quantizations into 8-bit or into 4-bit if you want to. But be warned, this will not work as great as you think it will work. I will show you the basics right now in OpenAI, so basically how this would work. But in this Google Colab notebook, you can do exactly the same thing with an open source model. If you come on OpenAI, you find here the model optimization. You can find the evals, the prompt engineering, and for us right now, fine-tuning is important. And you can actually press on fine-tuning and you will be something like here. Here they tell you what models you can fine-tune. Here they talk about supervised fine-tuning. You can use, for example, a GPT 4.1 model, a 4.1 mini model, or a 4.1 nano model. And if you want to do supervised fine-tuning with one of these models, they tell you how you should do it. First, you need to build your own training dataset, because you need to define what good looks like. Then you need to upload the dataset. Then you need to create a fine-tuning shop with your data, and then you should evaluate everything. How you should build your dataset, generally speaking, is relatively easy. You need to have a minimum number of examples, like 10. But 50 to 100 is a lot better. They recommend to starting with 50. But the 50 examples need to be really good. If 50 examples have no impact, you should rethink like your whole training data. Sometimes they can go up until 500 examples. What makes a good example? Whether prompts and outputs you expect in your application as realistic as possible. You should be specific and clear, and you should use historical data. You need to use a format that is called JSON. You can follow these links to read a little bit further. Then you can use the chat completions format, and your file must have at least 10 lines. Here you see a JSON format, or of course also the comparison JSON data. And here you basically see how you need to structure all of this. It starts with message, role, content, and then you see basically the content, what is the weather in San Francisco. Then it starts with the role, assistant, tool calls, tool ID, function, and so on. So this is a basic example where they did fine-tuning for better tool calling, to call this specific tool, the weather tool. But you can train on specific styles, you can fine-tune on whatever you want. You can also distill from a larger model if you want, and then of course uploading the training data. First you should come to fine-tuning, so you are basically here, and yeah, that's basically it. You need to come here on fine-tuning, you can press create. Here you use the supervised fine-tuning, then you need to select a model, 4.1 for example, you can also work with older ones. Let's just use the nano. You need to give a suffix, you should also use a seed, most likely you simply use random, and then you upload the training data that you have structured exactly in the right format. And if you have problems to create this training data, you should simply write the input and output that you want to have, and then you can tell ChatGPT, please, here is an example of a JSON-L format, make my example data into JSON-L because I need to do fine-tuning, something like this. Then you can upload this and basically you can go on, and as soon as everything is done, I will show you actually a fine-tuned model that I have. After the fine-tuning job is done, you will find your model under successful. This was a previous GPT 3.5 turbo model that I have fine-tuned. I have used 3 epochs, the batch size was only 1, and then down here you can see also the loss log. First we have a small spike, but then this thing comes down and you see how the fine-tuning is working. It gets more precise, and on the accuracy you see that the opposite is happening. It gets more accurate for my specific use case. This was a model that can post on Twitter, like small little threads, and it seems that this works like relatively great. This model was relatively okay, but I want to tell you some of the downsides. First, you need to have really good data, and gathering data could take a long time. Second, you need to make your fine-tuning job. Also, this takes a little bit of time. Third, fine-tuning is not completely for free. Yes, it's relatively cheap, but you still have to pay. Fourth, as soon as you use your fine-tuned model, most of the time your fine-tuned model is actually more expensive than a normal model. Fifth, your fine-tuned model can eventually also be slower than a normal model. And sixth, this is really devastating, all of the other models, they get fine-tuned by OpenAI like nearly every single week. So they will get small, minor improvements all the time, and your model will simply stay as dumb as it is. This is a gigantic downfall. Then the next one, OpenAI and basically every single other LLM provider will create new models all the time. And if you want to switch to a newer model, your old fine-tuned model is no longer relevant. Seventh, of course, you already heard it, you can eventually do overfitting. Your model maybe behaves a tiny bit more how you want, but in general it gets dumber. So these were right now 7 points why you should eventually not do fine-tuning. It takes a long time, and at the end of the day, maybe your model gets even dumber and more expensive, and it will no longer get automatic updates. And you already know the solution, you know what you should do. Just focus on a really good and precise system prompt, focus on using the right LLM, just use the right model, use a right system prompt, maybe include the RAG technology if you want that your model behaves in a specific way, and you are basically set. You are flexible, you can switch all the time to these models, and you are not stuck with your dumb fine-tuned model. If you still want to have more information on fine-tuning, please just come to OpenAI. You can scroll a tiny bit down. They will actually give you a lot of examples how you can and probably should do fine-tuning. They will go into a little bit more detail. And if you come on the optimization cycle, you can also scroll down and you get also a video from this guy that talks a tiny bit about fine-tuning. So here on model optimizations inside of the OpenAI API, you will find a lot of different examples. You can also eventually do vision fine-tuning, but this is of course absolutely not relevant for us. If you need to do fine-tuning, it should be supervised fine-tuning, maybe train a little bit of a special style in a model, but I would recommend you to not do this. Your application will most likely get dumber because of overfitting. It can get slower, it can get more expensive, it will take a long time. Your model gets no longer automatically smarter, and if a new model comes around the corner and if you want to switch, everything that you did was irrelevant because you use another model. Long story short, I do think you should not fine-tune, even if some people on social media tell you that you should do it. In this section you have really learned a lot, and I want to make a quick recap. You understand what the Model Context Protocol is. It's basically a layer of abstraction between MCP server and client. We use the MCP protocol in order to translate your API calls, and this makes it really cool, because as soon as you have a server developed, you can connect it to every single host that you want without changing your server. This is a lot better than standard HTTP requests because you have to set them up every time from scratch. Especially if you use databases, this is awesome because you can share these databases with all your LLMs that you like to work with. Then we have connected this MCP server not only to N8N, no, we have also connected it to LM Studio. It's really easy. You can simply include this MCP config file and then it will work. You can call it as a tool. Next we have connected conf.ui to N8N. Also this works relatively easy. You have to install the community node and then you have to import the API JSON directly from conf.ui, and we need to map our prompt dynamically. Then you can trigger conf.ui directly from N8N. You can simply type in what you want and you will get your picture. The picture gets automatically stored on your local machine, but you can also store it in Google Drive or wherever you like. Next I showed you sub workflows. With sub workflows you can basically trigger whatever you want. You have the possibility to use MCP server. The server uses call N8N workflow, and this sub workflow can be a new whole automation. We use the chance to trigger conf.ui with that, because conf.ui is not really available as a tool. And then we have connected it to LM Studio, and LM Studio gets your ChatGPT clone that can also generate pictures locally on your machine with conf.ui. Next I showed you all the Open Web UI basics. You can simply install Docker. Obviously you have Llama already running. You connect these two things and then you have a really nice clean interface that looks like ChatGPT and that can also do basically the same things as ChatGPT. Especially if you work in an organization, this can be great because you can give different users different access. You can dictate your prompts, this thing can talk back, you can use the RAG technology. You have a lot of options here. You can even use it as a front end for N8N. But the downfall is that the MCP tool, yeah, it's a little bit wobbly. Sometimes it works for me, most of the time it doesn't. That's why we used this chance to work with webhooks. If you want to work with webhooks, you have to use either a hosted version or you simply start N8N with a tunnel. Then you can use these webhooks and you can call once again entire automations. You can simply use an AI agent and here you can add tools. You can add of course an MCP server and here you can connect once again to all the other tools that you have already set up. Or you can connect to Gmail. So you have a lot of possibilities here. And it's relatively easy to use because we can use a function that other people have already written for us. We just have to connect it with a bearer authentication and then we are ready. Next I wanted to show you also how you can make HTTP requests to an API. If your machine is a little bit slow, like my machine is, obviously we can also use an API to create pictures, to create videos, or even for LLMs. We can use OpenRouter, we can use OpenAI, we can use Grok and a lot more. And for image generation I do really like Replicate, because on Replicate you will find all the image and video models that you like. In order to include these models, we can simply do a standard HTTP request. We use this HTTP request node, we import the curl, we give our API key and we are ready to rock. Then of course we need to map our prompts dynamically. We always use dummy data to make it a little bit simpler, and then we can automate nearly every single thing that we want, and we can trigger it out from Open Web UI if we wish to. And lastly we took a look at optical character recognition. Obviously you can make whole automations, but I would recommend you to start in Open Web UI or also use the standard Llama app, whatever you like. If you want to dive deeper into OCR automations, you can also hit me up with an email and I can of course include more videos on this. But I would guess that you are right now like somehow strong with these automations and with N8N, and you can simply search through these automations for yourself, find the right thing for you and simply use it. If you find only automations that use closed source models, just switch them with an open source model and use Llama. So I really think that you have learned a lot, and I want to tell you what learning is. Learning is same circumstances but different behavior. If you found one automation that you like inside this section, please try to use this automation. Try to set it up, only then you have learned. And I want to tell you once again really quick what good learners do. Obviously they learn together, because more people always know more than few people. And we could reach this goal by you sharing this course. If you share this course and also the other person gets value out from this course, they will describe the value to you because you have told them. Thank you for that, and I see you obviously in the next section. Because nobody watches a course until now and skips the last sections. So see you in the next one.